Title: I got cheated on by my wife with her coworker. I took revenge in front of our families, and here's how it all unfolded. So this is a long one, but I want to share what happened to me over the past year because it's been a roller coaster and I finally have some closure. About a year ago, I found out that my wife had been cheating on me. The shock wasn't just that she was unfaithful, it was who she was cheating with. The guy worked with her at her company. Yes, her coworker. And no, this wasn't some discreet fling, it went on for months behind my back while I was grinding at work trying to provide for us. Here's the kicker: when we got married, we signed a prenup. She thought she was going to get half of everything, but legally, she walked away with almost nothing. That was just karma starting to take shape. How I discovered the affair. I had noticed she was distant, coming home late, sometimes with suspicious texts. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself maybe work was just stressful or she needed time for herself. But the signs kept piling up. She started guarding her phone like it was a treasure, always swiping to close apps when I walked into the room or quickly changing screens if I glanced over. She stopped sharing the small, everyday details we used to talk about. When I asked about work, she became evasive, sometimes defensive, and avoided eye contact. These subtle shifts tangled in my gut, but I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt, hoping I was just being paranoid. The truth didn't come all at once. It was like trying to piece together a shattered mirror, where every fragment revealed a little more. There were more late nights at work, whispers of business dinners, and an uptick in weekend meetings that didn't quite make sense. I noticed changes in her routine. She began dressing differently, putting more effort into her appearance, and suddenly trying new hobbies that left her away for hours. Conversations turned colder and less frequent, the warmth between us faded like a shadow. One night, after she came home late from a girls' night out, I heard the shower running. The house was quiet, and the running water gave me a brief moment alone with my thoughts, and with her phone, left unattended on the kitchen counter. My heart pounded as I rationalized that I had to know the truth. With her in the shower, I checked the messages. What I found shattered my world: months of secret texts between her and the coworker, photos I was never meant to see, and plans for meetings that had been disguised as work events. It confirmed all my worst fears. What crushed me even more was discovering that her best friend had known the entire time and had actively helped her keep the secret, advising on how to cover her tracks. That betrayal stung the deepest, isolating me in a tide of pain and fury, making it clear I was alone in this. Planning the revenge. I'm not someone who handles pain quietly. After the initial shock and heartbreak, I realized that simply walking away without confronting the betrayal wouldn't give me the closure or justice I needed. I began to plan my revenge carefully, not in some petty or destructive way, but strategically, to reveal the truth where it mattered most. The moment I chose was our upcoming family get-together, a rare occasion when both our families and a few close friends would be gathered under one roof. I wanted everyone to see the truth, to break through the facade my wife had created and to make sure no one was left in the dark. The planning required a delicate balance. I didn't want it to turn into a messy public spectacle but rather a controlled, undeniable exposure of the deceit. I gathered all the evidence, texts, photos, witnesses, brooding over every detail to ensure nothing could be disputed or dismissed. I rehearsed what I would say, how to keep my emotions in check so it would hit harder coming from a place of calm certainty. I wanted my wife and her coworker to feel the weight of their choices, but I also wanted to stand tall and dignified, showing everyone I was the one who held the power by refusing to be humiliated quietly. More than anything, this wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about reclaiming my dignity and control over my own narrative. I knew emotions would run high, mine and theirs, but my goal was clarity, truth, and finally unmasking the betrayal that had festered for too long in the shadows. I was painfully aware that such revelations could permanently alter relationships and reputations, yet I believed honesty was the only path forward. With every passing day leading up to the event, the weight of the secret grew heavier on my shoulders, but so did my determination. This carefully orchestrated moment would be the turning point. No more lies, no more silent suffering. It was the truth's time in the spotlight, and despite the pain, I knew it was necessary for all of us to begin healing. After the big reveal. About a week after the shocking anniversary reveal, when things had started to settle but tensions still ran high, we had a formal meeting with our lawyers present. My wife had confidently believed that in the divorce proceedings she would walk away with half of everything, the house, assets, savings, everything we'd built together. But during the meeting, my lawyer calmly reminded her that she had signed a prenuptial agreement before our marriage. The prenup clearly protected my assets and made it legally clear that she was not entitled to an equal split. When this was stated, her composure shattered instantly. She screamed and threw a tantrum in front of everyone, her fury raw and unfiltered. "This isn't fair. You can't do this to me," she yelled, flinging papers and pacing angrily, the anger and desperation pouring out in waves. But no matter how loud she cried or protested, the legal facts were undeniable. The prenup stood firm, and she realized she would be leaving the marriage with almost nothing. About 5 months after the courts had finalized everything and all divorce papers were signed, my ex-wife started trying to flip the narrative outside the courtroom. She told friends, family, and anyone who would listen that she had felt emotionally abandoned during our marriage because I was so consumed with work and chasing promotions. However, this claim didn't hold much water with those who knew us well. 2 of her own family members, her brother and her aunt, quietly but firmly spoke up against her version of events. They reminded everyone how dedicated I had been not just to work but to building a life with her, despite the challenges. Their voices carried weight, and most family and friends refused to buy into her excuse, seeing it as an attempt to justify her betrayal and rewrite the story to gain sympathy. This made her efforts to sway opinion feel increasingly desperate and transparent. Update 1: Her life after the divorce. After the divorce was finalized, it was clear her life was unraveling in ways she hadn't anticipated. Losing her job was one of the first and hardest blows. Once the company discovered the affair and the toxic dynamics that had played out, they made it clear there was no place for her anymore. Being fired severed her connection not only to her career but to the corporate social life she had relied on. The coworker involved was also let go, cutting off the last support within that world. Without her job, financial strain soon followed, leaving her scrambling to find footing. She struggled to maintain a stable routine, and with her professional identity shaken, her confidence crumbled. Socially, the fallout was even harsher. The best friend who had known all along about the affair and kept silent slowly distanced herself, burdened by guilt and unable to face the growing isolation. Friends and acquaintances who once welcomed her warmth began to turn away. Invitations stopped coming, and her presence was met with cold civility or avoidant silence. Those who had once called her a close friend now whispered behind closed doors, reluctant to engage with someone who had betrayed so much trust. The loneliness deepened, and she was left to reckon with the social consequences of her choices. Her reputation, once polished and respected, suffered quietly but steadily. Through mutual contacts, I heard how she struggled in virtually every social circle, from family gatherings to community events. The damage done wasn't just legal or financial, it was deeply personal, leaving her isolated and searching for ways to reconnect with a world that no longer embraced her. Despite moments of sympathy from a few who saw her pain, the overwhelming consensus was clear: actions have consequences. And for her, rebuilding trust and respect after such a public and painful betrayal was a daunting and uncertain path. Update 2: Perspectives from friends and family. Several mutual friends reached out to me in the months following the divorce, sharing their own suppressed feelings about the whole situation. Many confessed they never liked how she treated me but felt trapped between loyalty to her and the uncomfortable truth. A few admitted they feared confrontation due to her manipulative nature. Over time, more friends began opening up, grateful that the truth finally surfaced. The support from both our families became a pivotal pillar for me. I was often approached privately by her relatives who expressed their regrets, admitting that they had been blind to her duplicity for too long. One of her family members confided that she never deserved someone as committed and genuine as I had been, a sentiment that both stung and soothed my wounds. Despite this, there was a bittersweet tone. Most people felt the loss of what could have been. The betrayal was a wound felt not just by me but by those around us, who had hoped differently for our marriage. It was surreal to see how quickly an entire social network could fracture, where former friends became more like strangers overnight. The deal was sealed not just legally but socially, with the unraveling of relationships underscoring the cost of deceit. Update 3: I moved on with someone better. Fast forward to now, I found a new girlfriend who genuinely shares my values, interests, and respect for loyalty. Our relationship feels deeply genuine and loving, the exact opposite of the deception I endured before. She's not just a girlfriend, she's a teammate, someone who supports my ambitions but also holds me accountable, sharing a vision of life as partners. Our connection renewed my faith in authentic love and partnership. The journey hasn't been easy, though. Healing from betrayal takes time and effort, and I had to relearn trust, vulnerability, and open communication. With her, I discovered the importance of mutual respect and honesty as foundations for something lasting and real. Compared to my ex, who found herself isolated and still struggling to find her footing, I'm in a much better place emotionally and mentally. This new chapter is proof that even after the worst heartbreaks, growth and happiness are possible. It's a reminder that sometimes the darkest periods pave the way for brighter days ahead.